Start the streaming, and we'll begin with a 72-second silence. Thank you. To remember those who lost their lives in the Grenfell tragedy. Apologies for absence. I thought Councillor Suffolk Bay and Councillor Taylor Smith is here, but he's just busy at the moment for the next 5 minutes or so. Are there any declarations of interest? No? And can I sign the minutes of the leadership team meeting held on the 28th of September as a true electorate record?
Agreed.
Thank you. As this is Barry's last leadership team meeting, I'd just like to put on record our gratitude and our thanks for the last time. Yeah. Right, and now, A4, adoption of an additional form of municipal houses and local occupation licensing scheme. Now, I know that we have seen this paper, many iterations, many times. I know everyone's really read it because it's really important. So is there anything that you'd like to really highlight on this?
I think for me it's really just to reflect on the fact that we are tackling poor quality housing within the borough. Kim, who just left the meeting, is doing a sterling job on council stock that we own, but this will give us the ability and the means to be able to go out and address housing issues within the wider community. We know that there are issues out there, we hear about them, we see them as ward councillors frequently, and I'm just really glad that this council is determined to stamp out this sort of poor quality housing around KNC.
And focusing on places which will work exits, etc., rather than self-contained.
Yes, exactly. So the proposal is to look at section 254 HMOs, which is what you would sort of, the average person would consider a flat share, a number of individuals living in a property together. We still believe there's around 3,500 to close to 4,000 of these properties within the borough. We could have gone wider in our ambitions, but I want to make sure that we don't bite off more than we can chew, and we do deliver the improved housing standards within section 254s, and then we'll be able to review this policy in place for a 5-year term. So we'll be able to look at it at the end of that period and see if we really achieve those goals.
Any questions? Catherine? Sorry, not Catherine, Sarah, then Tommy. Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this because I think anything we can do to improve housing conditions safety is really important. One thing, in the EIA, it talks about improving health and wellbeing for those living with disabilities. I couldn't see, and I apologise if I've missed it, that there's anything in the document that talks about disability access, fire safety and evacuation plans, and I just wondered if this was something.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Right, thank you. When the licensing process goes through and the landlord completes all the details, room sizes, etc., and the officers then go, if there are obvious needs for improvements in, say, for evacuation plan or kind of wheelchair access on the right level, that would be assessed at that time, and then be risk assessed effectively. So if we came across a situation where there's a problem, that hasn't been addressed, then that would be first to deal with, and that would be some collaboration with the landlord first, and then potentially some enforcement afterwards if they didn't take that account. And it's not just us; their insurance company want to make sure it's right as well. So there's a two-edged sword to deal with it. It's not specifically mentioned because it's all part of the assessment building use for people. Does that
Okay. Johnny.
This is. I want to talk about one of the potential unintended consequences of the policy and to make sure that we're considering it. So if for example, a Ukrainian refugee moves into somebody's house, so no, that becomes an HMO, and whether we're considering the implications of that in terms of how the policies develop, so that we're sensitive to people that are doing the right thing and acting in a civic-minded way.
We're not interested in pursuing people having long-term house guests. We're looking at flat shares.
Yeah.
So not an issue.
Great.
Anyone else? That's right.
Sorry, I have a question. Hopefully it hasn't been answered already. So my question is really on this definition of household. And would it cover, for instance, people who are part of the Ukrainian?
Yes.
We've done that one. Was it the satisfactory answer?
It was a
Satisfactory
brilliant
answer.
answer, I have to say.
Okay, well then I will be quiet. Thank you.
But it does mean that we have then the power to go into places to make sure that they are safe, because after Grenfell we really want to ensure that our housing and rental operation, that the standard is higher. That's what this is really about. It's not us being sort of a fishes council. It's just us really wanting to ensure that
Very much so.
safety standards are upheld. Good. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. I know it's been a huge amount of work, so thank you. Can we please all agree with the recommendations in paragraph 2?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Right. What is this? Sorry. The update of the environmental health enforcement.
Yes,
Environmental health.
thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, so what we're presenting here tonight is a update of environmental health policy. Now, it's had a few minor updates over the years, but this is a kind of more of a major revision that has been put in place this time around. We've updated things such as had a new policy now in relation to letting legislation. We've also got a social media enforcement policy for our own council officers as well, in order to ensure that kind of also be put forward. So, happy to take questions on it, but obviously, I'm recommending adoption and to publish the new environmental health policy going forward.
What are the big, what are the big changes?
Oh, so yeah, as I said, some of the big changes are in relation to the lettings legislation. And for example, in paragraph 4.2 of the document, where we talk about the use of social media and online resources for enforcement purposes. So this is the first time, I think it's the first time, Tim, we put this in relation to doing that about council officers don't use social media for respect of breach GDPR and other enforcement measures like that.
That's correct. If I may, the main change, if you like, one of the sort of big drivers,
Yeah.
is making it more readable, more understandable.
That's
Very.
Yeah.
That's
Plain and simple English, we put it in.
Very
That's right, exactly.
By Catherine, and then Kim.
Thank you. On page 2 of your document, and 96 of our pages, you've got a whole list of all the formal actions that you can take. I just wondered, I mean, I don't need exact numbers, but off the top of your head, I have no idea sort of how many of these are actually issued, say on an annual basis. Say you've got fixed penalty notices, statutory notices, injunctions. I mean, are we talking in the tens, in the hundreds, in the thousands?
we serve probably hundreds of statutory notices. That might be, so for example, a prohibition notice for noise. So Environmental Protection Act, Noise Nuisance Team, So we know that maybe on an individual or a business or something. We do fixed penalties, less than 100 probably. Prohibitions are unusual. There's a few. Injunctions very unusual. The seizure of goods, trading standards do, for example, so they picked up on Portsmouth Road, and there's a store or shop selling illegal fake handbags, for example. They'll take hundreds and hundreds of handbags and stock. You'll have seen the vapes, things illegally imported and sized vapes. So it's busy. Different teams are busy at different times. We closed a food premises a couple of weeks ago, and then the action that comes out of that. So different teams, different volumes. We'd love to take you out and show you, so you can get a full picture of that.
I'd love to. I'd like to.
Okay.
Organise a
Yeah, we definitely won't do a mini bus.
Thank you.
Yes, on the policy summary, page 1, page 95, you list a number of categories, pest licensing, but you also talk about private sector housing, and obviously the obvious question for me from that is that it's what about registered providers?
Right. So
What's the sort of journey or the future as far as that is concerned?
Okay, so we work in, so there's a lady called Christine Cummings who works in the housing section in Dan Hawthorne's area, who liaises between us as an enforcement body and the registered providers, who's obviously provided for accommodation in the council. The eternal discussion is when we're contacted by a registered provider tenant who's living in poor conditions, is we check to make sure that the landlord knows. But we're not adverse to quite quickly getting involved with the landlord ourselves and saying, what are you doing about this leaky roof? Whatever the issue is. And we do occasionally take formal action against them.
We do.
We do. It's after consideration, it's got to be appropriate. And a good example would be a sound insulation upgrade, because some unfortunately, lots of the properties in the borough were converted a long time ago and don't comply with the current building regs. So sound insulation can be very poor if the stacking is incorrect. And that causes a great expense to the registered providers. So we go through a process of, could they be moved or rehoused, or is it carpet, cheaper methods to get an improvement, or potentially, and we have done it, serve an improvement notice that we have done properly at great expense, unfortunately. It doesn't happen often, but it's about engagement, and the whole point of this code is, we can start very friendly and helpful, etc., and quite quickly get to the enforcement sharp end, or gradually as we rack the pressure up, appropriate help, and potentially threats to get things done. And it's a very strange situation, because when we serve the enforcement notice, we actually charge for it. And suddenly, when they realise we're going to pay 700 quid for us to serve the notice, they get on and do the work, because that's a good way of getting it. And that's why, proudly, we don't serve that many enforcement notices to get the work done, because we don't need to, because they work with us. And Christine Cummings and that position with the registered providers between us and them is very beneficial.
Okay, well, I'm confident that will ultimately serve the interests. It's comforting to know. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah. I thought it was really well written. And I'm talking like 2.5, and I'm glad that we'll target our resources where it'll have the greatest effect. I absolutely agree about adopting a more liberal approach with those who have a history of compliance. So what you're saying, someone is basically complying, they're made a mistake, that's one thing. It's just whether they're continually pushing against, then they'll have to pay.
Yes.
Okay, on that basis, can we please agree the recommendations in paragraph 2, which is to agree to adopt and publish updated and
So your page is up now.
updated paragraph.
Page is up.
54, sorry, yeah, 54.
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. And now we are on page 97.
97.
97, yes, and It's about the distribution of household support fund, of the household support fund, October 22 to March 23. And Tony, do you want to?
Thanks, Elizabeth. So this is the latest tranche of the Household Support Fund, which is money that we have received from government to help target specific needs in the borough to try and help people that are suffering from the cost of living crisis, the energy crisis and the associated economic headwinds. There's a much wider picture in terms of the support the council's already giving. So we do have a cost of living hub that signposts residents to some of the support that's available to them. There's information on the holiday activities and food programme, discretionary housing payments and much else. We also had a previous tranche of the Household Support Fund earlier in the year, which had provisions in place to assist those in need, including a subsistence support payment for vulnerable families who are known as family services and care leavers living in their own accommodation. This tranche of the Household Support Fund totals £1.18 million. But because we recognise the scale of the challenge that many people in the borough are facing and the inequalities that exist and the deprivation that exists in parts of the borough, we're topping that up with an extra £300,000 or so of our own money. This is from our cost of living fund, recently repurposed, and we hope that it goes some way in mitigating some of the challenges we'll be discussing tonight. The national pot from which the £1.18 million of the Household Support Fund comes is from £420.1 million that the government have distributed nationally. We're trying to target families who are already known to the service generally with this tranche. Numbers in the group's identified range include the 4,500 children currently in receipt of free school meals, for example. We know that's something that has come out really strongly through the pandemic, and I think it's likely to continue rightly far beyond next spring, and likely to be mainstreamed into kind of whether it's local or national government funding sources. But we're doing our bit, and we're actually topping up the amount that's given. So we're doing £4 now, I think, as opposed to £3, and that's the sort of important distinction I think is made through the way that we're allocating it, is that although there's a certain amount of need that's been identified by officers and the assessments that we've made, in certain places we're going above and beyond to recognise that it's not enough to be confident in terms of how we distribute our funds, but we have to demonstrate that we care and that we want to address the inequalities and the need that exists in the borough. So I think it's a very, hopefully, a useful signal and something that will give a lot of help to a lot of people in the borough.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Catherine?
Well, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate this, because obviously you are addressing the most vulnerable and the people who, will be most affected by the cost of living crisis that's coming up, and particularly our children in the borough and the families with young children and our care leavers. So it's really fantastic to see that we're putting this support in place. As you said, that we're increasing from £3 to £4 the voucher for free school meals. And these will, of course, start from next week. It's the October half term. They'll start from then and go right through to the end of the Easter holidays. So at least there is a period of security when they know that those vouchers are going to be coming through. So I really welcome that. And likewise with the care leavers, because we know that's a cohort of people going through a really difficult time transitioning through, when we have been enveloping them more is care from the council. They're now on their own, they're now having to live their own lives, so particularly vulnerable, and so it's great that we're putting in some extra support here to help them through that. So I just want to say thank you very much and how much I welcome it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And although no local authority can wholly resolve the issues of inequality and cost of living, this paper hopefully demonstrates that the council is doing its bit. We're ready to play our part, we're here to step up. Everything in our power we can do, we do want to do. And that's why we've gone above and beyond to top up the fund. So we've got more money in the cost of living fund that hopefully over the coming years we can allocate to target the needs that emerge.
I agree.
Are there any other questions? Anything you want to say? No, just a question.
I fear it.
Still on the show? Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, if there is nothing else on the agenda, let me. So, can we please agree with recommendations?
What a final last act. So we ensure that the £1.4 million total is.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed, yes. So, if there is no other business before we leave this, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.